Welcome, everyone, to episode 17 of Healing Conversations. I'm Gloria Liebecker with my co-host, Ingrid Gunby. And we're going to be talking about greeting rituals today. And I wonder if you might start us off in that.
Yeah, so this was a topic that I got interested in because I'd started to think about greeting rituals that the horses use with each other and with humans. And then started thinking about how rich those rituals are and how much reflection they prompt for me on how we humans do our greeting rituals. And how in some cultures there's still a kind of an intact culture of really intentional, slow, present greetings when people either first meet each other or meet each other again after a while. And in other cultures, I think, like the dominant culture here where I live in New Zealand, those rituals have become formalities a lot more, and there isn't that same level of intentionality and presence, and the sort of the cost of that. So I got very fascinated by what we could do with this topic.
Yeah. Well, another part of that in greeting, when you think about when you haven't seen someone for a while, for instance, you and I, this happens for us if one of us has got a full schedule or the other one goes on a holiday for a while. When we finally do make a connection, that there's a very intentional way that we reconnect to maintain a secure connection.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that we do that is we pause and we gaze in one another's eyes and smile and check in to hear what's really alive for the other person and catch up with one another.
Yeah. Before we rush into whatever the kind of content focus of our conversation might have been. Yeah, like recording one of these conversations.
We must need to schedule quite a bit of time so we can connect and then we can record.
Yeah. And I was thinking too, there have been some times where we've both gone, or one of us has gone, actually, I don't feel that I can record a conversation today because we haven't seen each other for a while and I need the time to really reconnect. And then we'll make another time to do a recording. Yeah. And I love that that's okay between us and that we understand why that might be needed.
So flexibility, really prioritizing the relationship and the relationship connection over the strategies of business or networking or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose also, like you mentioned, secure attachment. In the way that we greet each other, there's always an opportunity to develop more secure connection with others, or not. The way that we greet each other can also create distance or express unheld anxiety. So there's a lot of information actually in how we greet each other, both one-on-one and in a group setting.
Definitely. I know one of the things that we go over in group settings here is even talking about this very thing. When we first see someone, we haven't seen them in a long time. And I'll demonstrate it with other participants. It's like I go, Ingrid, hey, and just like overpower you. Yeah. But instead, I'm excited to see Ingrid, and I'm going to slow myself down and just relish that. And then I'm going to say, Ingrid, I'm so glad to see you. Can I give you a hug? And I get consent first. Because so many times we don't even realize out of our own excitement that we've partially flipped our lid and we're now intruding on another's personal territory.
And we don't know if we've flipped our lid, and we should clarify what we mean by that, because we don't mean kind of completely lost it, but we've gone into a kind of level of emotional kind of
Stimulus.
stimulus, yes, good word, that means that we're not actually tracking how the other person might be experiencing what's happening. And we've just lost that awareness, and probably are not always reading the signals that the other person's sending about whether this is or isn't okay.
And so bringing the horses there, the horses, when we're with them, every single movement they make has intention behind it, has communication within it.
And they're super aware of how they are using their own bodies and breath and positioning in space, and how all the other horses and the humans are using their bodies and positioning in space and breathing. And we as humans are often not, both when we're with the horses and when we're with other humans. We haven't developed, or we've lost that awareness, that fine-grained awareness.
I would say that horses are master constellators of energy and information flow, even between worlds. Whereas humans, unless we have been fortunate enough to have communities that have fostered us in this way, it's really, even knowing what constellation work is might be foreign to people. So like bodies in space, when you say that, it makes me think of constellation work.
Absolutely. Although it's really interesting how, I don't know if this matches your experience, but I have found with working with the constellations with the horses, that if I try to describe it to people before they've experienced it, they're often like, well, how would that work? But when they experience it, it makes sense, which tells me that, and I mean makes deep sense, not just sort of makes cognitive sense, makes deep experiential sense, and which would suggest to me that actually humans have just as much innate capacity to track bodies in space and the relational information conveyed by that as horses do. We're just not consciously doing it, but we are absolutely unconsciously picking up that information, and it's having an effect on us. We're just not always aware of it and don't know how to be with that in a way that's actually always adaptive for us and for our communities and relationships.
A part of it too, talking about in reestablishing connections, especially when there's been separation. If one has had anxiety, then that may impact the reconnection. If there's been like a separation anxiety, because it's going to work up the anxiousness within. It could be the fear anxiety, or it could be the panic grief anxiety.
That's right. How's it been for us to be in a relationship? Have we felt safe? Both in relationship generally and in relationship with this particular person. Have we felt safe? Have we felt secure in the connection? Have we had abandonment?
Do we believe that we matter, even though the other is not near us, not in close proximity? Have we established that kind of security, or have we established a way to maintain the connection even from a distance? To ease
that's right. And if we have the anxiety that you're talking about, it's going to be extra important, when we meet. There's a whole lot of scanning that's going on to determine the answer to those questions. Am I safe? Do I matter? Is this connection secure? Can I be sure about that? So and we all actually do this kind of scanning when we meet someone, not just for the first time, but when we meet them again. sometimes it's like a microsecond of scanning, but we all do it, and you can actually track it by watching what people's eyes do, you know, and how they move over the person's face. We all do it. But for some of us, there's more anxiety loaded into that process because of our past experience and how we've traveled through the world.
Yeah. So I know, and I want to hold with a lot of care, those of us who have experienced some complex trauma. It can be really painful to have separation. And then it can actually be more painful when you know the other person's going to come back. So especially if there maybe be some avoidant attachment there or ambivalent attachment, it's and it can look different.
Yeah.
And so when we can have that kind of compassionate understanding, then we can make, I guess we can make allowances. We can be flexible and adaptable, as you were saying, with the connection and take time with it.
Yeah. Because I think the thing that maybe is sitting under this conversation for both of us is that actually we all benefit from taking more time to establish connection in the greeting ritual part of meeting somebody. We all benefit because when we do that, we are intentionally slowing things down and paying attention to the quality of the relationship rather than the kind of instrumental goal or strategy of the meeting. And we all benefit when we do that.
Yeah. Well, and for some people, touch is really welcomed and really desired. And for others, touch is not so important. To many horses, touch is not so important.
That's right.
But they do touch at certain times. And so, you know, what is the intention behind the touch? Or is there even awareness that touch is coming or being asked for?
Yeah, that's right. Because what do I say? Humans tend to default to touch. But I think I've often found that in the work with the horses, if I give the human permission to really inquire of themselves whether touch is actually what they really want, or whether sharing space would feel more comfortable, it's surprising how often people go, you know what, I don't even know why I'm defaulting to wanting to touch the horse. Even from my own perspective, like it feels like something I should do. It's not really something that I'm truly wanting or needing.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a kind of a programmed thing that if we're touching, the conditioning is if we're touching, then the connection is stronger than if we're not. But that's not necessarily true at all.
Which brings up another aspect of that is that for us human beings, many times we've been conditioned to make projections about what it means when you touch.
Yes.
And so we begin to project upon other beings what their actions mean without actually checking in with them. And so we're just living by our own story in our head.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a story about the other being. It's a story about ourselves. It's a story about what connection looks like and feels like and how to make it happen. And it can become incredibly detached from the actual experience of meeting. In a way that can be quite alienating and can leave us with ongoing anxiety about the connection because we've got the form of connecting but without the actual the heart of it happening. And so no wonder that we're kind of vibrating with that anxiety feeling and overriding it because we, you know, how to unpack all of this. Mm.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering, maybe you could share with our viewers when you are reconnecting with somebody and you sense there's an underlying uncomfortableness or perhaps anxiety. How do
Mm.
you encourage reconnection?
Mm. Mm. I'm thinking it depends a little bit on whether this is someone I'm close to already, or someone that I'm getting to know, or perhaps a client.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but either way, the way that I do it now is by shifting consciously out of both hurrying into whatever it was that the outward agenda of the meeting might be about, the connection might be about, and shifting out of questioning mode into really listening, like
Mm-hmm.
really listening to what the person is expressing. And I suppose it's a kind of attunement which offers resonance for whatever it is that the person is expressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really tuning into the other being.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's right. Because when we feel heard and seen and gotten, which is what we're conveying to someone when we pick up their tone or kind of really hear a significant word, particularly a word that's connected to a feeling state for somebody, and we let them know that we've caught that, we've heard it, and we're resonating with it, that is often an enormous relief. And also making sure that we're not kind of diving in too deep with that for somebody in a way that might be like too much being seen, because for some people that's intrusive as well, in the same way that a great big hug
Yeah.
can feel too much. So in the way that I might resonate with someone, be resonant with someone,
Mm-hmm.
will vary a little depending on the nature of the relationship, but for me that's probably the core of it. And I don't know what is. Would you add anything? What would you add?
Yeah, well, I really, really resonate with what you have expressed so far. The piece that I notice that I will tend to do, and a lot of it comes from my background working with some people that have had even some developmental trauma, to really slow it down, to notice their pulse, notice their facial, all of those nonverbal cues. And then also because of their body position, even, my body position may change. I may slightly, so it's not as threatening being straight on, but just taking my cues from body position and all of those things and consciously breathing deep into my heart and into my belly with my chest more open, my body posture, just being more conscientious. I did this with one of my horses that just had a panic attack the other day and got loose from a person and went just storming off. And I'm like, I found myself automatically going into that kind of posture with the deep breathing and just calling out to them energetically and being non-threatening. And I was able to walk right up and just check in and see what's up. But really, it's the same thing you were saying with the tuning in, but using my body and my surrogate prefrontal cortex to invite there to be a syncing up between us that can be felt unconsciously.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, because the verbal resonance is only one. It's kind of one modality of offering resonance. But I think what we're both saying is that if we have the awareness that the other is anxious about connection in any aspect of connection, then offering gentle resonance is for both of us, I suppose, the most powerful way of offering that syncing up, which feels like secure connection.
Mm-hmm. Well, just as a family, there's going to be a hub of the family that tends to be the master regulator. The same is true in most group dynamics. There may be two master regulators that are partnering together, which is one of my favorite ways to collaborate, to really have one another's backs and have everyone being held. And it's important to realize and remember that regulation, internal regulation, is just the co-regulation from other. And so we really do need one another in order to stay present. We're not intended to ever be in isolation or alone.
Yeah, yeah.
So we need
What's that?
It's a real need.
It is a real need. It absolutely is. And I guess I think we've probably talked about this before, but I'm very aware as we're talking as an image. I'm thinking about my facilitation with the horses, and how the horses understand this need for shared regulation, and how my mare Bella, very often, she's not the only one that does it, but if I'm working with a client in the smaller corral area, which is very close to the gateway to the arena, so the client and I and one of the other herd members might be working together, but Bella will come up and stand often as close to right behind my shoulder as she can get, depending on where I'm standing. And she's basically there going, here I am, being your, co-master regulator for this process, because the horses totally understand that actually it's really helpful to be offering this together. Yeah.
Well, I believe, in my experience, they can sense when it's needed, and they're willing to step forward.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Just as they do with one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love seeing that in my herd with my two minis, and they're in there with all the big ones, but how they will still go up and be right alongside a big one, just like a big one might come and be alongside of them. Yeah. And so it's not determined on the size of the bee.
No.
Which is always amazing. Because that's where for humans, because of our conditioning and our cultures, we can have these veils that drop over our perceptions, and we have all this meaning making that's not actually been checked out. That we believe that, I don't know, every water bottle looks like this one. And it's not true. Because there can be nuances and differences that we don't actually see because we think we already know it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So again, it comes back to what you said. Are we actually attentive? Are we paying attention? Are we open and curious and listening?
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that one of the ways that we can develop our openness and curiosity and attentiveness actually is observing horses and how they do their greeting rituals and how they are with each other in space, and the subtlety of a lot of their checking in and communicating with each other. Oftentimes, I think initially people only see the really loud communications that horses might use because we've missed all of the stuff that led up to it. But observing, not just when horses first meet each other, like if you introduce a new horse to the herd, there's very, very, very overt kind of rituals around how they get to know each other and how they do that without anyone getting injured. Even if there's a lot of stamping and squealing and, kicking or threatening to kick, that they're really trying not to injure each other at all, but to just find ways of expressing all the excitement and energy of this new connection. But the deliberateness with which they use very light touch, perhaps, and breath to acknowledge, to gather information about the other person's being, the other horse's being in that moment, and to negotiate how they're going to share space together.
Yeah.
Is very beautiful once you notice what is actually happening.
It's a different language for humans to learn, for sure.
Yeah, it is. And even though it's a different language, I guess the principles of it feel applicable to human meeting for me. The slowness of it, the pausing, the kind of, the, like in the basic equine greeting ritual, there's 3 nose touches and sniffs, which, they could do with the back of our hand if we offer that to them. And there's usually a pause between each one to sort of consider and feel. And then, one of the other things is that once that ritual is complete, you don't just kind of stay right in each other's space. Like, you actually want to sort of step back a little and find a companionable place to be alongside each other, but not kind of eyeball to eyeball. So there's a lovely deliberateness, kind of quiet, calm, slow pace.
Yeah.
And then having really seen each other, moving to what are we going to do now that we've done the here we are, here are you and here am I in this space together in this moment. We might touch, or we might just share space, or we might go somewhere together.
Yeah, I found that really fascinating just the other day with the horses, and they tend to have their favored partner that they hang out with. And the other day when they came out, they did this just as you had said. They kind of came in, but it's like they swapped partners, and they did the breathing, coming up next to each other, head to head, and with the nostrils and taking their time. And then they turned and they went off 2 and 2 different directions, different partners. And I'm like, oh, well, isn't that curious?
Yeah. Would you like to spend time with me today? How would that feel for you? Yeah.
So it was kind of fun to see. And then also with the horses, people can learn a lot by watching one another's face, their throat and face. Horses do the same with theirs, and so how much do we actually notice? Some people can be really inexperienced and just think a horse is a horse. But, there are key things that we can begin to pay attention to begin to have a little more insight or curiosity around what's happening for the horse.
And one of the things that is often misunderstood, I think, around what the horses can do with their heads and necks and faces is that gently turning the head away a little without also moving the feet away. So many people see that as a sign of rejection, that the horse is rejecting them, doesn't want to have anything to do with them, right? But actually, it's more the horse either asking for a little bit of space, sometimes can be that, or offering space, actually, yes, you can, here's a space next to my shoulder, it's okay to come in here. It can be other things as well, but it's actually not, if it's just a gentle turn of the head and neck away, it's not rejection, and again, there is the story that we're carrying about what this would mean, completely obscuring our ability to sense what it really does mean in this moment with this horse. Mm.
Yeah, very true.
Mm.
It's fascinating to always learn more. There's new little nuggets out there each time with different horses, and also just with getting to have conversations with other people that are as fascinated with those relationships as I am.
Yes.
Enjoy the conversations.
Yes.
If people would like to get to come and work with you and your herd, or your herd, how would they reach out and get a hold of you, Ingrid?
Yeah, the easiest way is via my website, which is www.ingridgunby.com, or .potent.co.nz. Takes you to the same place. And you can get in touch with me via phone or email, or multiple ways. How about you, Gloria?
Well, my website is the easiest way to get a hold of me as well, and that's at healingyoursanctuary.com. And I would love to get to have a conversation with anyone that's curious around these horses, or just around what are greeting rituals anyway, and how can I get to become more present to them. Yeah. Well, thank you, Ingrid. It's been a lovely conversation. I look forward to the next meet and greet we get to have.
Me too.
Bye.
Bye.